each other succeed.
My computer career actually helped me set up my resume. So with that help, I was able to land a job within the first 4 months of attending school in my computer career.
A few weeks before graduation, though, I landed my first job as a Tier 1 technician with a large insurance company. And 6 months later, I was actually working as a Tier 2 technician with a significant pay raise. And kind of like my first job, they were also very impressed that I had so many certifications.
You have to look at what you want in life and where you're at. For me, my computer career was an easy choice because they offered me a better lifestyle that I really wanted, and it was the only place that would really give me that upper hand in life.
The folks at my computer career are very caring. They really care about our success in the IT industry, not just with certifications, but also with finding a career and really being happy with that choice.
Hello, IT enthusiasts. Welcome to another episode of My Computer Careers, Get Into IT Live, where we do just that, get into all things IT. As always, thank you for joining us on your Fridays and your Friday at lunch. We know that you're eager to not only eat and ignore us, but head into the weekend, and we don't blame you. So we appreciate 30 minutes, and we always love the topic we're going to dig into, and no doubt that our guest is the perfect person to chat with about that. But we will get into that in just a second. A little housekeeping just to let you know, Patricia is always in the comments. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask our guest or anything you'd like to ask us, please throw it in. This always goes better when we have some interaction and some help from the comment section. So please do jump in and we'll do our best to feed that over to Sarah. I'm sure that we won't be able to answer the question, but Sarah will. Okay. And speaking of Sarah, just to intro the topic first, we're here to talk about whether or not college is worth it. And let me just bury the lead a little bit and say, yes, it is. But there are other paths that should be talked about. This is a topic that generates so much buzz even after the chat. So we always try to come back to it. Is the traditional 4-year path worth it for you in 2025? The discussion outside of our little circle is loud. That's why we talk about it. It's been amplified. So we're really pleased to introduce one of the leading voices offering some clarity and thought-provoking insight on the topic. And that person is none other than today's guest, and Sarah Hernholm. Sarah, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Sarah was asking, by the way, in our prelim when we were kind of meeting and chatting, what makes these bad? And I explained to her that what makes these bad is when the bald host talks too much. So I'm going to do the best I can not to do that and let Sarah share her expertise throughout. So we're very glad to have you, Sarah.
Very happy to be here.
And I'm going to properly introduce you. So this is a bio from your LinkedIn. I redacted it a bit, so please add whatever you'd like.
Okay.
Sarah is the founder and president of WIT. That's Whatever It Takes. She's a Forbes contributor, and she's a Washington Speakers Bureau keynote speaker. Her bio, some of her, obviously, some of the topics that she dabbles in and obviously spends her time doing: youth entrepreneurship, AI and education, leadership development, adventure travel, innovation and education. For over 15 years, she has been at the intersection of education and innovation, supporting teams as they build real world skills, launch businesses, develop their voice, and learn how to use tools like AI with purpose and integrity. When young people understand they don't need permission to create change, everything shifts.
Yep.
It's an awesome bio. Before we get started officially, why don't you tell us a little bit about WIT, Sarah?
So I started WIT about 15 years ago, and I am a former classroom teacher. So I used to teach in the public school system and was laid off every year I taught due to budget cuts. And so that's an interesting experience in California because they have a last in, first out policy. So last person hired is the first person fired, no matter what you bring to the table. You could be great, but you're gone if there's a budget cut. And honestly, it just wasn't, it got to the point, I'm sure other people listening will appreciate this. At some point in your career, you just kind of go, wait a second, like, what's happening? And where do I want to go? And I really had to have that honest conversation with myself. And I gave myself a summer to play around with some different ideas of what I could do. And I started WIT, and I just told myself, okay, let's see what I can do in 3 months with it. And here we are. And it started with just how can we take how can we supplement where the subjects that aren't being taught in school, how can we make sure that those are taught? And so that's evolved over the years, but ultimately it comes down to entrepreneurship, financial literacy, emotional intelligence, those things that just aren't touched on that are important when you want to be successful.
Well, folks, definitely go check out Whit's site and also check out Sarah's Forbes articles. It really digs into some of the insight and the things that she's passionate about, and the topics are not only heady, but really something that I think we should all be paying attention to, especially now. So go check those things out. By the way, Bruce Ackerman says, welcome, Sarah. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Bruce.
Just to let you know, Bruce he's our Chief Marketing Officer, so we're stacking the deck a little bit here, but very nice to have you. Thanks. All right, speaking of Forbes, why don't we dig right in?
Okay.
You mentioned so we found you from the Forbes article. I read it, I reread it earlier this week, and it was so nice of you to join us, especially last minute, because I know you're so busy.
Yeah.
You mentioned in that article, is college worth it in 2025? And there was a bit more to the title, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
That college costs have skyrocketed while outcomes haven't kept pace. For someone that's sitting at home and maybe stressing about their path to a career, what should they actually be weighing in that kind of big decision?
Well, I think a big part of the equation when it comes to college is the cost of it. And because I work with young people, because I work with teenagers that are looking at this next step in their life and looking at where to go and what choices to make, I just think it's irresponsible not to have the conversation about cost and the ROI of that cost. And there used to be a time when people would say, yes, but it's this name. And so if I'm in this name, it's worth the debt. It's worth going into debt so I can say that I went to this school.
Yep.
I would say that there is a shift happening now, because perhaps those top name schools aren't feeling as top to people just based on recent events or how they're running their programming. So for me, the big question is, and what I say to all of our teens is that I do not want you graduating with 6 figures of debt. I just think you're just going to go from, it's just a prison to live in that debt. And you will not be able to make the choices that truly are best for you, because you have to make the choice that's best for debt. And I just would never want someone to start their life that way.
Yeah. And it's so practical. And, honestly, those, and this as well as anyone, those enrollment prices they're increasing.
They are. And I will say, full transparency, my parents paid for college. I did not have any debt in college. My parents paid for everything. That is such a gift to have that experience. And so when I was making my choices, I didn't have to think about that cost. But that's not what's typical for everybody. And right. So we need to be honest about that with our young people.
Yep.
And also admit that when I'm advising a young person, I say, I had a different route than you did. And so I'm coming from a different perspective and different experience. But I'm telling you, if I had graduated from college with $300,000 or $200,000 in debt that I had to figure out, I do not know how I would have made very different job choices.
Yeah. Amen. Literally, you can feel buried by that.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Well, there's this really interesting stat in your article about how many graduates end up in jobs that don't require their degree.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why do we see that gap? Why is that happening?
Well, I'd also say, and I'm just realizing this kind of in real time with the question being asked, is that I went to school and I got a theater degree. Okay. It was a theater degree. Now I went into TV and film. First off, that was what ended up happening was I started working in TV and film behind the scenes. What I'm doing today, I would say I joke with my parents that tuition paid for me being able to public speak, do this thing last minute, go on stages and speak and make money. So that did help, having that training. But for a long time, people have been getting degrees that don't necessarily translate to the job that they have. And I just question, I think there are definitely degrees that you need to have if you want to go into certain fields. But because of just how the world is built right now, you can actually start doing that work that you want to do a lot of times right now, just based on the technology that's available to you. And I just think it's a cultural thing that people are a little uncomfortable to say at the dinner party, well, my kids aren't going to college, because before that looked like they were like a loser, that they weren't going to college.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of like just having to shift the cultural conversation that maybe you're actually not a loser for not going to college. You're actually really smart and you've already started your business.
So let's talk about that conversation.
Yeah.
That cultural conversation is it's so important. You've spent 15 years working with teens, and, obviously through WIT, you're helping them launch businesses. You're helping them develop real world skills. I have a tough time with real world.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from young people today, from those kids that you talk to, about their concerns around education and career paths?
Well, I would say it's mostly parents that are concerned because they're a little unsure of things. And I would say that sometimes the child is parroting that concern, but I don't necessarily know. I wouldn't say that child is truly feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about my career path. But I would say the parents that I talk to, they're confused, mostly around AI. They're very concerned and confused that the education in high school, that the school in high school is like, AI is like the devil and is like so bad and it's cheating. And yet when they look into college, there's actually majors that are in AI.
Right.
And they're like, wait a second. And so how is my child supposed to be prepared for this college experience or this world that supposedly is going to include AI if they're not even learning how to use it responsibly in high school? So that honestly, the AI conversation is like the biggest conversation that young people and adults are having with me.
Got it. We just featured, I think a few weeks ago, there is a high school that just launched in Virginia.
Okay.
That is all AI. There are no instructors. Everything is done virtually. It's got like a $64,000 price tag.
Is this Alpha?
I don't know. I don't remember the name of. Is that what it is?
I don't know. That is one school that doesn't have any teachers, and the kids do 2 hours of AI education, and the rest of the day they're working on like a passion project or a business or something like that. But
I'm not sure, honestly, Sarah. It could have been. It was just it was kind of shocking to see, as an old guy like me. All of a sudden, here we are.
Here we are
with a $64,000 price tag. We have a few folks out in the comment section. Matthew Ackerman, every $30,000 of student debt will take decades to pay off. I imagine 6 figures, right? I can only imagine 6 figures. Bruce is a theater major himself, so he says, go theater degree.
Yes.
But Bruce also has a question. From what you've seen, how do you get parents and their kids aligned? And we actually have a question about this later, Bruce. Quit burying the lead on their career and education plans. And when should that conversation start?
Okay. We also have to let our kids live. Okay.
Good.
We need to let children just have a childhood. I think that is just so important. I am not doing what I thought I would be doing when I was a kid. I'm also not doing what I thought I would be doing when I was in college.
Right.
I'm also not doing what I thought I would do when I was in my 20s. So let's normalize that you're not supposed to have all the answers for your future at 15 years old. What I think is important, and I just believe this to the core of my being, is if you teach young people to live with an entrepreneurial mindset, a lot of these problems will take care of themselves because they're just learning how to problem solve through the activation of an entrepreneurial mindset. So you're teaching in your home and then hopefully in your school how you walk and live in the world. Are you somebody who walks around the world and goes like, that's weird. Why is it happening that way? Oh, maybe I'll take the initiative and explore that and be curious and then maybe solve that problem. I think if you are teaching that in your home and you're encouraging that and you're encouraging curiosity and then following through on your curiosity, a lot of these things just become how you handle your life, and you're not scared to make a career change later on, and because you can bet on yourself. I think if we could raise more young people that know how to bet on themselves, and know how to be of service, then I think a lot of these things kind of take care of themselves. You see a lot of people crippled with indecision and crippled with choice of like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And then you ask them, have you ever tried something and followed through on it completely?
Yeah.
And they're like, not really. I've
Yeah.
studied for a test. I've checked the boxes. I've hit my volunteer requirements, but like, have you ever truly gone deep on something and mastered it and learned how to do that? So that's what I would be like really wanting people to talk about in the home.
So I think there's a lot there to obviously think about, but the one thing to really remember is let kids be kids.
Yes.
Don't stress them out too much here. You know, it's kind of like the Andre Agassi story. You know, his father was just, for those who don't know, tennis pro, 90s, early 2000s, his father was just that guy that insisted that he play tennis, and it's all he did his entire life. And he wound up just hating it. He got to a point where he just didn't want to do it.
You also, yeah, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I love when I look back on my childhood, I just love that there wasn't so much pressure around this conversation. And I went to college prep schools. And so maybe I just wasn't interested in the conversation myself.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that it doesn't weigh on me. I mean, I was somebody who I applied to one college, I got in, I was like, if I don't get in, I'm going to go travel. And, you know, my parents were like, wait, what are you talking about? But I love that I spent summers with, here's something I will say to the parents. I get why you want to enroll your kids in these very top-notch summer programs. WIT is one of them. So I appreciate that. Thank you for participating in our programs. We keep ours very short, like 5 days for the reason that I'm going to share with you. I think it's so important for young people to get a summer job. I think if you could I don't care if it's like a 2-day thing at an ice cream shop, if you kick off like a babysitting gig in your neighborhood, you learn so much from those jobs. Like I realize how much I learned from those jobs. And now when I talk to kids, I am finding that the ones that have that responsibility, that the parents make them do that, it's so different to work with them. So that's just something I wanted to put in there. Have them get a job.
I'm glad you did. Always, I had to have a job. You know, my parents insisted on it. And that's where you learn the importance of showing up, if nothing else, showing up on time. Show up on time.
Yes.
No, I realize I sound old, but people just do it. Just show up on time. It's the one thing you can control.
I know.
Yeah. All right. So why don't we talk alternatives a little bit, if you don't mind?
Yes, let's do that.
We have a lot here. Trade schools, apprenticeships, certifications. You mentioned these in the article.
Mm-hmm.
What advantages might those paths offer versus maybe the traditional route?
Well, I mean, not everybody, people have different gifts and talents, you know, and just because for some reason at some time of our lifetime, trade schools were like, well, if you don't get into college, or like, oh, I guess take a trade if you're just not. It was almost said with like I guess do a trade school. Like it was like something bad. Right. And I'm looking at the income of the people that are doing trades, and I'm going, they're making more than some people that come out with a four-year degree. And some people aren't built to be sitting in an office. Some people aren't built to be running their own business. I just think we have to admit that and go be honest with yourself. I do think it takes a certain level of like, I don't know, bravery is not the right word, but for lack of one, let's just use that. Just say, wait, I'm not going to buy into this. Like, I'm not going to buy into the fact that this lie that like, this is the exact route you're supposed to take in order to be approved by society. That this is how, and parents have to be stronger in that and say, like, that's not for my kid. That's not what my kid's supposed to be doing. My kid loves to work on the truck with his dad or whatever. It's like, maybe there's something there.
Right.
And don't make that seem like that's not good enough. I just think I think many people take a path that's not right for them, and they wake up later in life and they go, I wish I would have just done the damn thing. I wish I would have just done the thing that I knew I liked to do, but I was trying to do what I was supposed to do. So I think please allow yourself and encourage people to explore different paths without any judgment. I mean, if somebody wants to go take care of themselves and provide for their family, provide for themselves in a different way, who are you to say that that's not the right way? I mean,
Right.
that's pretty arrogant to walk around thinking like, the way for everybody.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there has been a stigma attached to the trade route for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think which is why I'd like to dive into this topic, because I think that stigma is, it's not going away, but it's slowing down.
It's
Especially
definitely slowing down. Yeah.
Gen Z is understanding, that tool belt generation is understanding the trade route, is understanding the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have 70 million, we call them skills warriors out there who don't have degrees that can go and fill various positions that are needed right now. So,
Yeah.
there is value. I'm sorry, I'm on my pulpit a little bit. There is value. There is value in traditional higher ed. You know what I know. Obviously, there is. All kinds of social interactions and value there, and value with just attending school and everything you can get from that. But that doesn't fit for everyone. That doesn't fit for every learner.
I really think that it's a bigger conversation that people should be having in their home.
Yeah. Fair. Perfectly fair. So we touched on the fact that a 4-year degree, the perception around that to be taken seriously. You already nailed that one. That narrative shifting, and I'm assuming you're glad that it is. So we can skip past that.
Yes.
Let's talk about in the world of, I guess I'll say IT because that's the world that we're in, but let's just say, trades specifically. We see people with certifications and hands-on experience that often compete really successfully against computer science grads. That's just what we see.
Okay.
What's your take, Sarah, on why employers are becoming more open to those alternative credentials?
Well, I think a lot of people are we've had enough experience and data collected for the other way, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's been a great result. So why wouldn't you be open to considering a different type of candidate with a different type of experience? Because this one over here that's did everything right and has all this stuff is maybe not showing up to work on time, or maybe there's been like issues or something. And so you get to say, why are we valuing this so high? Why don't we consider over here? I think that people are just open to considering different candidates because the traditional candidate is not always thriving in the workforce.
Makes great sense. I was thinking about, you talked about AI earlier, and I'm going to ask this again. I'm going to ask this. It may be redundant. If it is, we'll just move past it. But you write about AI in education a lot.
I do.
How is AI changing the conversation around what skills actually matter in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, I think I write about it so much because even I think it's just changing so much, and I'm curious about it. And I'm curious about it because I use AI in my daily life, and a platform for our teams to use through WIT called Witty. And I don't know the answer to that. I just think that things are shifting and changing, and it's really cool to see what you can take off your plate and outsource through AI that you used to maybe have to hire somebody to do.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can then put your funds towards hiring somebody for something else. Maybe because you're not spending, maybe you're not having to pay like 2 salaries for a certain level job, because now you can use AI for that. So now you can invest in a different type of person for your company, because now you have the funds to do that. I also think that, I'll stop there. That's what I think is what the shift that I'm seeing.
No, it's a great answer. It makes a lot of good sense. I think the takeaway is, if you haven't for some reason, you have to get fluent with AI, everyone in every role, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're just getting started, whether you've been doing it forever like me, you have to get fluent. There's just no way around it.
And to think, so I was talking to a woman who's homeschooling her kids, and she was very much like, oh, like AI is like, no, I've heard it. I don't want, like, I'm an analog person. Like, I don't like this thing. And I said, okay, I just want to throw an idea out to you. This idea of logging into ChatGPT and writing into the chat, the prompt about like 5 things that you're trying to cover this week with your child and homeschooling, like the outcomes that you want for your kid after those 5 days, and to ask ChatGPT to put together a schedule that might help you hit those outcomes.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, it can do that?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. I said, it's just, I get it. Cause this is the thing is like, Aaron, I was resistant to it.
Right.
So to it. And so I really appreciate like resistance, unknown. I appreciate like, but I just want to be able to like talk to people, or I just don't understand this thing and where's it going and who has this information. I get all that concern. But like you said, it's just important to be literate in it and to learn about it and to maybe take a class on it that you can, from home, and don't let something be scary. Just look into it and be curious about it.
Well said. Well said. And ultimately, it allows you to be more creative because it gets all the tasks out of the way, which is great. All right. So you mentioned in your bio, Sarah, that you help young people lead with confidence, curiosity, and courage, which is fantastic. How does someone, though, build that confidence when they're potentially choosing a non-traditional path that might not have their parents or their peers' full support? We touched on it a little bit. We're kind of coming around full circle, talking about maybe not a young person because we have to let them be kids, but how does that younger person or that person considering, going into a non-traditional path, how do they get that confidence, without that support?
I guess a few things come to mind for me. One is ask yourself, what would my future self say to me about making a choice today for somebody other than myself? Like, do something today that your future self will thank you for. Your future self isn't like, hey, I really would love it if you'd spend the next 5 years making choices that only make your peers and your parents happy. Future self is like, can you set us up for success? Can you make choices that don't put us into debt? Can you make choices that give you the credentials that help us take care of ourselves, take care of a family? That, I just think that sometimes it's very hard because when we're just in this like present moment, we're so concerned about the noise all around us. It's very normal. If you have that, that's superhuman. I mean, that's very human to have that feeling. I have it. Right. But the way that I try to push through that is to go like, am I really going to be the person that like 5 years from now doesn't have X, Y, or Z because I was worried about what Joe was going to think about me when I went to the bar and I like talked to him about what I was doing? Like, I mean, you're not living for those people. You must live for yourself and the future that you want. I mean, this is getting a little, maybe like going a little far here, but people are putting off like getting married and having children and having families because of the debt that they're getting into with the choices that they're making that are supposedly the traditional route. That means like you do not want to be putting off the life that you're meant to live or have because of debt and because you think you're supposed to do something like go out. And I think the most wonderful rebellious thing you can do is to go like, I get to make choices for myself. And this will also, this is personal and I'm open. I'm sure people are going to have a judgment on it. But I have actually used ChatGPT to help me come up with a visualization kind of mantra thing that I say every day.
Fantastic.
That I read to myself out loud. Yeah. That ties in all the goals in the future that I want to have. And so I speak that every day. And I think it's something that you can use that tool to help you. The mantra, the words, the mission statement that you want to have in your life. And when you read that, it's very easy to quiet. You're like, okay, this is where I'm headed. This is where I'm headed. But it's important to have a visualization or a goal. It's very hard to make these kind of decisions with just like, it's hard to say no to something without something in front of you. So try to put something in front of you for sure.
Excellent advice, folks. Make a decision for yourself. If not for your current self, think of your future self. Don't listen to the noise. If you take nothing else away, that's just an excellent piece of advice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Okay.
Let's get practical. If someone's
Okay.
watching right now and they're thinking, okay, maybe college isn't my path, Sarah's making really good sense. What are the first 3 things they should do to start exploring the alternatives?
Well, I would make sure you're being really honest with yourself about why it's not. Like, we don't want to just do something just because.
Great
Why
point.
why don't you want to go to college? Because college could really be a good choice for you. And then my question, if I would say, like, be honest with yourself about why it isn't. And then if you realize in that conversation with yourself that actually maybe I do want to do it, then the real conversation would be, where can I go where I will not accumulate debt? Where can I get either scholarships, or where can I go that's just maybe I do community college for a couple of years and then I transfer? Like, just be very honest with yourself about that, because honestly, I'm never asked where I really went to college. I mean, but I guess if I was, I can say where I graduated from. So if you want to do a couple of years somewhere else and then transfer over and then graduate from that place, that means something to you, because it's okay if it means something to you. If it's okay if saying that you graduated from University of Virginia matters to you. Own that. And that's 100% great to know that that matters to you. But how can you get there without accumulating a lot of debt? So that's what I would say to that person. I'd also say, if you're saying, okay, the answer is it's not right for me. Well, how are you living in your life today that shows that there's another path for you? So we can't just say, I'm not going to do college, I'm going to do this over here, and then not be able to look at our life and go, am I already making steps that are showing that that's a good path for me? And if you're not making those steps, like if you haven't signed up for certifications, so you haven't take an action step today. Take an action step today. Do something, sign up for something, enroll in a program, go on, create a LinkedIn profile and start reaching out to people who are already in your field. There's simple messages you can send. Hi, I'm Sarah. I've decided I'm not going to college. I'm going to pursue this. It looks like you already have. What's one thing you would say to me? What's one thing you would say to your younger self when they were taking this route? And then I would, this is like going back to, I would probably use ChatGPT and say, okay, in 2 years, I want to be in this position, or in 2 years, I want to have this much money, or in 2 years, I want this. Can you help me make a plan to do that? Now, you don't have to outsource your entire life to ChatGPT, but it used to be that you'd have to hire a life coach or a business coach to do some of these things. You still can, but when you're starting out, use a free service to kind of help you do that. But you must take tangible, real steps every day. Otherwise, you're not building self-confidence, because every time you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it,
Right.
And you teach yourself that when I give my word, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it matters when I give to other people, but when I give it to myself, it doesn't. That's not going to help you. You can't be successful.
One of my favorite anecdotes is there's a children's author, very successful, wound up selling all of his books to school systems like back in the 90s, made bank, doing great. And he says people always walk up to him and said, I want to write a book. I have a great idea for a book. And he said, go write it. And he said that 98% of the people aren't going to do that because they're not taking that action. They're not taking that next step. And
This happens when I used to, I travel a lot now, but I'm married, so I'm with my husband. But when I was starting out, when I was single, so I was on a plane by myself a lot and met people, and what I do, and they would say, "Oh my gosh, I have a business idea." I said, "But I'm just so busy. I have I've got work, I got all these things," and I would say, "Have you watched Lord of the Rings? Have you watched the show, right?" And they would say, yeah, I love that series. I'm like, well, then you have time. And then, oh, damn. And I'm like, I know. But what I mean is we do have time. And so maybe, and this is another thing, and I've talked about before, is sometimes and more comfortable to stay in the conversation of what you would want to do instead of actually doing it. If this is what's familiar, this is what's comfortable, even though it looks like it's not comfortable because it's not getting what you want. It's just easier to live in that. So my invitation to everybody is God, just push back against the system, against the man, against authority. Because I don't like to have a boss. So I'm always push back and just like take a step today that says like, I am worth a future that allows me to provide for myself, for my family, and to live well. You get to have that, but you must take steps today for that.
Even if you're not a creative, go read The War of Art, folks. It'll help you push past all of that stuff. No doubt about it. By the way, Bruce was commenting on your comment about, make a decision for yourself and own it. So he's saying fantastic idea. So thanks, Bruce, for that. And then Greg Collier, I love that. We do have time. Amen, Greg. Thanks for joining us. All right. Going to get you out of here on this one. And I know we have to let kids be kids, but this is your expertise. So I got to ask, what gives you the most hope when you look at how young people are approaching education and career decisions, future decisions? It doesn't have to be career decisions. Mm-hmm. What are they getting right?
So much that they're getting right. And what I applaud them for is their resilience. They have a day that nobody watching this would ever want to have. They have to go to a place every day and follow rules and then act like they're interested, and then go home and do 3 hours of more of that work.
Yeah.
And none of us would sign up for it. None of us would. Everybody that is watching this would take the discomfort. I would say majority of us would take the discomfort that we have in our work life, then go through the typical school day today and the homework load of today. So my goodness, if they are, I just applaud their resilience. I'm not joking. Many of them that I get to work with have not hardened their hearts or their creativity. They're close because the system does not, the typical system awarding creativity is not awarding innovation or pursuit of excellence and mastery. It's just not. And that they are still curious and trying to explore something that they're interested in and working on that. Like, so we work with kids outside of school, and that they come to us with a problem they want to solve or a give back that they want to do. And they still have that joy in their heart, despite this day that is just insane, that starts at 6:30 a.m. and doesn't end until 10.
Right.
And, they're getting all their, because they're still willing to show up, and they're still willing to try, and they're still believe in themselves that like maybe when they're done with school, they can actually live the life that they want to live. And I have the best job that I get to hang out with teenagers. I love teens.
I love it. Your passion comes through. It definitely does. And I think it's such an important discussion. And I'm glad that you were here to share some of this. What I missed? Did I miss anything?
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. And thank you for, this is a pro tip for everyone. Aaron wrote just a really great LinkedIn message to get on this show within like 3, and I was like at the turnaround time, and I rarely do that, but there was something really great about it. So make the effort, make the time to reach out on LinkedIn. It pays off.
I really appreciate that. It was a flyer for sure, but if you don't ask, you're never going to know. All you can do is tell me no. So I really appreciated it. No doubt about it. Yeah. Okay, folks, we did share Sarah's LinkedIn. Go check it out. You can find more about WIT. You can find more, obviously, on her contributions to Forbes. Go check out her Forbes articles. Read up on the great things that she's doing and talking about. Follow her. It is definitely a worthy follow. I have. And I can't thank you enough, Sarah, for spending, looky here, 40 minutes with us today.
Great.
So fantastic. Yeah, really great chat. All right. For everybody else, obviously, thank you all for joining. Thank you in the comment section and some of the great comments we had in some of the shares. And there's the Forbes article as well. Thank you, Patricia. All right. We will be back here next week, same time, same place. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Sarah, thank you again. And if you don't mind just hanging around for a few seconds as we go off. All right. Thanks, folks. We'll see you later.